standing at the most important moment of your life. The entire
Sorry,
town is watching.
but I
You are
simply
dressed in a
cannot
beautiful,
marry
though
you.
maybe a little too tight, red dress, and you are ready to finally start your own life. Then you look up. The man standing across from you, the man who is supposed to be your husband, looks you up and down, and a look of pure, utter disgust washes over his face. He doesn't whisper. He doesn't pause. He just shouts one word that shatters your whole world. No. Imagine that moment. The gasp from the crowd. The shame that washes over you. It's the moment you realize that all the cruel words you've heard your whole life were just confirmed by the man you were supposed to marry. That's exactly where Hannah found herself. But what happened next is an incredible story about courage, a cowboy who saw past the surface, and the kind of love that can only be forged in fire. Stick around, because this story isn't about heartbreak. It's about finally realizing your own worth. For Hannah, her wedding day wasn't a dream. It felt like a trial. Her mother and her aunts, sharp-eyed women who never missed a chance to criticize, had laced her into a crimson dress and a punishing corset, reminding her every second that she was too much for the world. Her value was based purely on her ability to secure a match, a marriage of convenience arranged by her father. She was marched into that church, head held down, the whispers of the small frontier town cutting into her like tiny knives. "Oh, look at her," they murmured. "Poor man." She knew what they meant. She was standing there exposed, wearing years of shame and cruel judgment. Then she reached the altar, and the groom, the tall, pale stranger, finally turned. He looked at her, and the silence was worse than the whispers. His eyes traveled slowly, taking in every curve, every tight stitch of that red dress. And then, the explosion. He turned to the room and yelled, "No, I refuse to marry her. My parents told me she was healthy and strong. They didn't tell me she was this." The laughter that erupted was cruel and sharp, confirming everything Hannah feared. The man simply walked out, leaving Hannah standing alone, humiliated, with her family staring at the floor in shame. That's what it was like when she was abandoned by her fiancé on the wedding day until the cowboy stepped in. The scene was chaos until the sheriff arrived. He was a man of the law, and in this world, a marriage contract was a contract. It had to be honored. He looked at the room, desperately trying to save the situation, and then he did the unthinkable. He offered a reward. 50 acres of good land and 10 head of cattle to any man who would step forward and take Hannah's hand. The crowd stirred, tempted by the land, but quickly looked at Hannah and settled back down. Their silence was another rejection, louder than the first. Not worth it, they seemed to agree. Just as the sheriff was about to give up, a voice boomed from the back. "I'll marry her." Every head snapped around. It was a cowboy, broad-shouldered, sun-weathered, the kind of man who looked like he belonged to the land. As he walked toward the altar, the whispers shifted. Who was he? Why would he sacrifice himself for a woman who had just been publicly shamed? He stopped in front of the sheriff, and then the twist came. The sheriff offered the land and the cattle. The cowboy just shook his head. "Keep your land. Keep your cattle. I don't want them." The entire church went silent. Why would a man give up a fortune? He wasn't doing it for money, and he clearly wasn't doing it for appearances. The cowboy, whose name was Ethan, turned to Hannah, his eyes calm and steady. Not mocking, not pitying, just seeing her. "If you'll have me," he said quietly. Hannah, completely broken and confused, simply nodded. She had no other choice, no other way out of that church. The preacher rushed through the ceremony, barely able to keep his voice steady. When he announced, "You may kiss the bride," Ethan simply said, "That won't be necessary," and stepped back. He didn't touch her, didn't make a show. He just said, "We're leaving." And just like that, Hannah was whisked out of the town that had just witnessed her greatest humiliation. She was now married to a complete stranger who had literally refused a generous bribe to be with her. They rode in silence to his ranch, a simple, honest place surrounded by rolling fields. Hannah was confused. If he didn't want the land, what did he want? Life on the ranch was quiet, clean, and utterly silent. Ethan showed her to a small, neat room. "This is yours," he said. "We'll talk tomorrow." And he closed the door. That was the pattern of their early life. They worked side by side, but lived 1,000 miles apart emotionally. He was kind but distant. He was never cruel, but never warm. He spoke only in short, simple instructions about the work, the garden, the well, the chicken coop. Hannah threw herself into the chores. She cooked, she cleaned, she worked her fingers raw, desperate to prove that she was useful, that she was worth the sacrifice he had made. But the silence at the dinner table was deafening. Every night, she lay in her small room, the questions spinning in her mind. Why did you marry me? What do you want? The years of her mother's voice calling her worthless echoed constantly. She felt like this was the rancher's shameful marriage turned into the kiss that changed everything. But she hadn't gotten to the kiss part yet. She was stuck in the shameful part. Finally, one evening, she couldn't take the quiet anymore. Her chair scraped against the floor as she stood up. She demanded to know the truth. Why, Ethan, you refused the land, you refused the cattle. Everyone wants something, so what's the real reason? Ethan stood up, his face unreadable for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice low but firm. I saw you standing there, Hannah. The whole world was mocking you, and you didn't run. That takes courage. That takes strength most people don't have. Hannah shook her head, tears filling her eyes. She couldn't accept it. That's not a reason, she whispered. That's pity. She retreated to her room, the walls between them now higher than ever. Pity was just another form of rejection. The breakthrough came slowly, through shared work. One morning, Ethan invited her to ride with him to check the fences. Hannah confessed she couldn't ride, that she was too heavy and would hurt the horse. His response was simple, yet profound. She's stronger than you think, Hannah, he said. Like you. As he helped her onto the calm mare, his hands were steady and strong. The brief warm contact was the first true moment of connection. Riding together, Hannah started to relax, even laugh. The fear began to fade. Later, mending a fence together, he didn't criticize when she split a board. He just handed her a new piece and said, try again, you'll get it. No anger, just patience and belief. The walls truly started to crumble one evening when Hannah saw Ethan looking at a silver locket. He confessed the whole truth. He had been a grieving widower. He thought that part of his life was over. But then he saw Hannah. I saw someone who understood what it was to be alone, he told her. Someone I could build a life with. Not because I pitied you, but because I respected you. He looked at her and said simply, I chose you. There's a difference. Weeks later, they had to go to town for supplies. Hannah was terrified of facing the people again, but Ethan was resolute. You can't hide from them forever, and you shouldn't have to. When they rode into the main street, the whispers started instantly. And then the former groom was waiting. He sneered, mocking Ethan, asking if the land was worth the shameful marriage. Ethan put down his supplies, turned to the crowd, and delivered a speech that changed everything. He announced that he had refused the land, shocking the whole town. He looked the former groom in the eye and said, I chose her, not for land, not for money. I chose her because I wanted to. She's worth 10 of you, 100 of you. Then, in the dusty middle of the street, with the entire town watching in stunned silence, he took Hannah's hand and asked her to dance. As they moved slowly to the music drifting from the saloon, Hannah stopped being terrified. She let herself be led, trusting him completely. No one laughed. They saw a true partnership. When the music faded, some people, surprisingly, began to clap. Hannah saw her mother in the crowd, her face twisted, but for the first time, Hannah didn't look away. She spoke, her voice clear and strong, finally rejecting the lifetime of cruelty. I am wanted, I am chosen, I am loved. As they rode back to the ranch, Ethan looked at her. You were incredible back there. Hannah smiled, a real, genuine smile. And when she asked him one last time why he chose her, he said, because when I saw you standing at that altar, alone and humiliated, you didn't beg. You just stood there with your head up. That's dignity. That's strength. He stopped the wagon as the sun set. He took her hand. I love you, Hannah. And for the first time in her life, she heard those words and knew they were true. I love you too, Ethan. They climbed down and stood together, looking at their home. Hannah knew she was finally where she belonged, not because she had settled, but because she had been truly chosen, and because she had finally learned to choose herself. What an incredible journey of finding courage and seeing beyond the surface. Hannah's story proves that your worth has nothing to do with what others say about you, and everything to do with the strength you find inside yourself. True love isn't about looks or money, it's about respect, choice, and courage. If Hannah's story resonated with the inner strength you know you have, please give this video a thumbs up. Liking the video helps us share more inspiring narratives like this one with people who need to hear them. And if you never want to miss another powerful story about resilience, life on the frontier, and second chances, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Come join the family here at Ironveil Narratives. We are dedicated to bringing you the most powerful, true-to-life tales of courage and transformation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.